The courtroom was silent. Every eye turned toward the tiny boy, just 8 years old, yet walking with unshakable confidence. His small hands clutched a pile of papers almost too heavy for him. The bailiff whispered under his breath, "Is this a joke?" But the boy's gaze was steady, his eyes burning with determination. Across the room, the defense attorney smirked. "This child? He's going to speak," he scoffed. The judge raised an eyebrow, intrigued. The jury leaned forward in their seats. His name? Malik Carter, just 8 years old, raised by a single mother who worked 3 jobs. Malik loved books more than toys. While other kids played video games, Malik spent hours in the library reading law books. He memorized court cases like fairy tales. His mother used to laugh, saying, "Baby, you're going to be a lawyer before you hit middle school." She had no idea how true those words would become. Nobody in that grand New York courtroom expected what came next. His mother had been wrongfully accused of stealing from the wealthy law firm she cleaned for. The evidence? Thin. The accusations? Cruel. But the firm's lawyers were powerful and merciless. They thought a poor black single mother had no chance. They didn't expect her son to walk into the courtroom. "Your Honor," Malik said, his small voice echoing. "May I speak on behalf of my mom?" Gasps filled the room. The judge adjusted his glasses. "Son, this isn't a playground." "I know, Your Honor," Malik replied firmly. "But the truth doesn't care about age." The courtroom froze. The defense attorney chuckled. "Let the boy embarrass himself," he sneered. But the jury members leaned forward, curious. Something in Malik's tone demanded attention. The judge nodded. "Proceed, young man. Let's hear you." Malik opened his papers. His tiny hands trembled, but his voice didn't. "Ladies and gentlemen of the jury," he began. "The law says a person is innocent until proven guilty. But my mom has been treated guilty from the start." The jurors glanced at one another. Malik walked to the evidence table. This so-called fingerprint evidence. It was taken from cleaning gloves. Her cleaning gloves. Murmurs swept the room. The judge leaned forward in surprise. Malik continued. "They used what she touches for work against her. That's not justice. That's a trap." Malik set the papers down with care. He looked directly at the jury, his eyes serious. "My mom is not a thief," he said softly. "She's a cleaner. She touches desks, computers, files. Of course her prints would be there." The jury nodded quietly. The defense lawyer coughed nervously. Malik turned to him with childlike innocence. "Sir, would you work with gloves all day and not leave prints?" Laughter rippled across the courtroom. Even the judge's lips curved into a smile. The lawyer's smirk disappeared instantly. Malik straightened his tiny shoulders. "This isn't about fingerprints. It's about power, and who gets to use it." Malik pointed at the firm's lawyer. "You said my mom stole money, but there's no video, no eyewitness, no record." He lifted one of his papers. "I checked the company's security logs. They were conveniently erased." Gasps spread across the courtroom. The judge frowned. "Is this true, counselor?" The defense lawyer shifted uncomfortably. "Those files had a system error." Malik tilted his head, his voice sharp. "Funny. Errors always seem to happen when poor people are accused." The jury whispered among themselves. The judge banged his gavel for silence. But inside, even he was impressed. Malik's voice grew stronger. "You say my mom had access to the office safe. But cleaners don't get safe codes. Only executives do." He glanced at the defense table. "Should we test their fingerprints on the safe handle?" The lawyer's face turned pale. The jury's eyes widened. The room buzzed with tension. Malik, just 8 years old, had flipped the case upside down. His mother sat in tears. She had never been prouder. The judge leaned forward. "Young man, how do you know all this?" Malik lifted his chin. "Because I read the law, sir, and because the truth is simple if you look close enough." Silence filled the courtroom. For the first time, the jury began doubting the prosecution. The judge folded his hands. "Malik, law is complicated. Do you really understand it?" Malik nodded slowly. "It's about fairness, right? If one side hides facts, that's not fair. If someone is blamed without proof, that's not fair. The law is just fairness with big words." The jury chuckled at his honesty, but their respect for him only grew deeper. Malik flipped another paper from his stack. His small fingers moved carefully, but his tone was firm. Your Honor, I studied their company's financial records. The judge raised his brows. At 8 years old? Malik nodded. Numbers tell stories too, sir. The jury leaned closer, curious. Malik pointed at a highlighted section. Here, the money wasn't missing from cleaning staff accounts. It was taken from executive bonus funds. The courtroom gasped. The defense attorney's face reddened. Malik didn't stop. And look at this transfer. Straight into an offshore account. He turned his wide eyes on the executives. That's not my mom's account. That belongs to one of you. Whispering filled the benches. The executives avoided eye contact. Malik stepped closer, his voice unwavering. If you're so sure my mom stole, open your bank records. The defense lawyer shot up. Objection. He's just a child. The judge slammed his gavel. Sit down, counselor. His eyes never left Malik. Continue, young man. Malik gave a shy smile, then pressed on. Malik's words echoed through the room. Jurors exchanged glances filled with doubt. One juror whispered, "The boy's making more sense than the lawyers." Another nodded gravely. This case is crumbling. Malik walked back to his mother. He held her hand tightly. Don't cry, Mom. The truth will win. She kissed his forehead, tears spilling down her cheeks. The jury watched the tender moment, visibly moved. The lead attorney leaned toward the executives, panicked. This kid is dangerous, he hissed. He's turning them against us. Malik overheard, tilting his head. Dangerous? He repeated loudly. The only dangerous thing here is lying. The crowd broke into quiet applause. The judge rapped his gavel again. Order. Order in the court. But even he couldn't hide his admiration. Malik adjusted his papers again. His voice sharpened like a lawyer's blade. If this were a fairy tale, the villain always slips up. But this isn't a fairy tale. This is my mom's life. The jury's faces softened, hearts moved. The executives fidgeted in their seats. The weight of guilt pressed heavier by the second. Malik stood tall despite his small frame. And I won't let her be your scapegoat. Malik turned toward the witness stand. May I ask Mr. Daniels a question? The judge raised a brow. The defense objected instantly. He's a child, Your Honor. The judge silenced him with one look. Overruled. Let the boy speak. The jury leaned forward eagerly. Malik walked up, clutching a single paper. His shoes squeaked softly on the floor. Mr. Daniels, he began carefully. You said my mom had access to the safe. The executive cleared his throat. Yes, she was cleaning near it. Malik tilted his head. But you told police you were in Chicago that week. The executive froze. Malik held up the paper. So how did you see her near the safe, if you weren't here? Gasps erupted across the room. Daniel stammered. I must have been mistaken. Malik pressed on, relentless. Mistaken? About being in another city? The jury shook their heads, whispering. Malik's eyes sharpened. Or mistaken because lying is easier than telling the truth. Daniels gripped the stand, sweating. The defense attorney jumped in. Objection. He's badgering the witness. The judge shook his head. He's exposing contradictions. Objection denied. Malik glanced at the jury. If a grown man can't remember where he was, why should we trust his story about my mom? The jury nodded, murmuring agreement. Daniels shifted uncomfortably in his chair. His tie looked tighter by the second. The courtroom buzzed like a hive. Malik stood firm. Mr. Daniels, Malik said gently, my mom might be poor, but she's honest. She doesn't even take extra sugar packets home from diners. Laughter rippled, then died quickly. Malik's tone hardened. But you had access to the safe, and you told police you weren't here. He pointed a small finger at the executive. Which one is the lie? Daniel's lips quivered, but no words came out. The jury stared at him like hawks. The judge's gavel tapped, but softly, almost approvingly. Answer the boy, the judge ordered. Daniel swallowed hard. His silence screamed guilt. Malik folded his arms. I'll take your silence as an answer. The courtroom erupted in whispers. Even the reporters scribbled furiously. An 8-year-old had just cornered a millionaire executive. Malik carefully unfolded another paper. His small hands smoothed the crumpled edges. Your Honor, he said clearly, this isn't just my word. I have proof. The courtroom fell dead silent. Even the clock on the wall seemed to stop ticking. Malik raised a folder high above his head. These are copies of internal emails. I found them in the trash outside the office. Gasps filled the room. The judge's eyes widened. Show the court. Malik handed the folder to the bailiff. The pages were passed to the judge and jury. Malik explained softly. In these emails, Mr. Daniels complained that his bonus wasn't enough. And right after that, money started disappearing. The jury read in shock. Malik pointed again. And here, this one says, no one will suspect the cleaner. Gasps thundered through the room. All eyes shot to Daniels. He turned pale as paper. Sweat dripped down his forehead. His lawyer muttered under his breath, furious. The jury looked outraged. One juror slammed a hand on the rail. This is disgusting, she whispered. The judge read silently, his lips pressed tight. Malik stood quietly, letting the evidence speak. He didn't need to shout. The truth was louder than any voice. Daniels tried to speak, but his words caught in his throat. The crowd stared at him like a trapped animal. His empire of lies was collapsing. And it was collapsing because of an 8-year-old boy. Malik looked back at his mom. She wept into her hands. But now her tears were of hope. Malik turned back to the jury. His voice trembled, but it was strong. Ladies and gentlemen, if my mom goes to jail, it won't be because she did wrong. It will be because the rich can lie and the poor can't fight back. The jury sat frozen, every word piercing their hearts. Malik took a deep breath. But today you can change that. He spread his tiny arms wide. Today you can show the world that truth doesn't care about money. It only cares about justice. Silence filled the air like thunder before a storm. Even the judge leaned back, visibly moved. One juror wiped away a tear. Another clasped her hands tightly, whispering a prayer. Malik lowered his arms. His voice softened to a whisper. Please give my mom her life back. The judge's gavel struck once. We'll hear closing remarks, he announced. Malik nodded, clutching his papers. But before anyone could speak, a juror whispered to another. This boy already gave the closing. Several others agreed silently. Mr. Lee, the foreman, cleared his throat. His eyes fixed on Malik. Your Honor, the jury has seen enough. Gasps rippled through the courtroom. The defense lawyer leapt to his feet. Outrageous. He's not even a real lawyer. The judge's glare cut him down instantly. Sit down, counselor. Mr. Daniels' hand shook. He tugged at his collar, face drenched in sweat. This is absurd, he stammered. Malik tilted his head. Then why are you sweating, sir? Laughter and murmurs filled the benches. Daniels slammed a hand on the witness stand. Enough. You don't know what you're talking about. Malik's voice was calm. The truth doesn't need me to shout, sir. The jury stared at Daniels with suspicion. His own arrogance had betrayed him. Another executive whispered urgently to him. Stop talking. You're digging a grave. But it was too late. Malik looked straight at the jury. If I, an 8-year-old, can see the holes in their story, how many more lies are hiding? Juror number 7, Mrs. Thompson, dabbed her eyes with a tissue. That child, he's fighting harder for truth than grown men. Malik stepped closer to the jury box. I don't want revenge. I just want my mom free. His voice cracked, but his eyes stayed firm. Angela buried her face in her hands, sobbing quietly. The room sat frozen, hearts heavy with emotion. Judge Harrison rubbed his temples. He had presided over hundreds of cases, but never one led by a child. His heart wrestled between procedure and justice. Malik's tiny frame stood tall before him. Your Honor, Malik said softly, the law is supposed to protect people like my mom. The judge's throat tightened. He had once believed the same thing. Before years of corruption dulled his faith. But this boy reminded him why justice mattered. Suddenly, Daniels burst out. Fine, she didn't steal the money. The courtroom exploded with gasps. But I didn't either, he shouted desperately. Malik's eyes narrowed. Then whose offshore account is this? Daniels' lips froze, color draining from his face. The jury erupted in furious whispers, realization dawning fast.